When you look at something across the room, you are not seeing it as it is. You are seeing it as it was. The difference is small, unfathomably small. Light moves fast enough that the delay between an object existing and your perception of it is measured in billionths of a second. A lamp on a table 3 meters away appears to you roughly 10 nanoseconds after the light leaves its surface. 10 billionths of a second. A duration so brief that no human sense could ever detect it, no intuition could ever grasp it. And yet, the delay is real. It does not feel real. It cannot feel real, but it is there, built into the fabric of how information travels, how light moves, how anything can be known at all. The lamp you see is not the lamp that exists. It is a record. A thin, ancient echo, preserved in the photons that struck your eye. 10 nanoseconds is nothing, less than nothing, by any practical measure. But it is not zero. And that distinction, that quiet, almost imperceptible distinction, is where something strange begins. We speak often of the present moment. We use phrases like right now, as though they point to something solid, something shared. You are reading this now. Someone across the world is breathing now. A satellite is passing overhead now. A star is burning now. But what do we mean by this? If we are careful, we might notice that the word now carries an assumption inside it. An assumption that all of these things, your reading, the breathing, the satellite, the star, exist together in a single frozen instant. That somewhere beneath the motion and the noise, there is a universal clock, ticking out a shared rhythm for everything that exists. This assumption feels natural. It feels obvious, and for most of human history, it was never questioned. But the universe does not seem to work this way. What we call the present appears to be something much stranger. Not a moment, but a kind of membrane, a thin local boundary that separates what we can know from what we cannot yet know. And beyond that boundary, the universe unfolds in a way that never quite lines up with our sense of here and now. Let us start with something close, something familiar. The Sun is roughly 150 million kilometers from Earth. This is a number that means very little on its own. The human mind was not built to hold distances at this scale. But there is another way to describe the same separation. Light, moving at 300,000 kilometers per second, takes approximately 8 minutes to travel from the surface of the Sun to the surface of the Earth. Not 8 seconds, not 8 milliseconds, 8 full minutes. What this means is simple but disorienting. When you look at the Sun, or more safely, when you see its light reflected on water or filtered through clouds, you're not seeing the Sun as it is. You are seeing the Sun as it was, 8 minutes ago. The photons entering your eye left the Sun's surface when you were doing something else. Perhaps you were still asleep. Perhaps you were mid-sentence in a conversation. Perhaps nothing memorable was happening at all. And now, 8 minutes later, those photons have arrived. The Sun you see is history. If the Sun were to vanish, if some impossible event were to suddenly remove it from the universe, you would not know for 8 minutes. You would continue to feel its warmth, see its light, exist in what felt like a normal day. And then 8 minutes after the event, the light would stop arriving. The warmth would fade. The sky would darken. Not because anything had just happened, but because something that happened 8 minutes ago had finally reached you. This is not a metaphor. This is not a poetic description. This is the physical reality of how information moves through space. The moon is closer, much closer, roughly 380,000 kilometers away, give or take, depending on where it is in its orbit. Light crosses this distance in about 1.25 seconds. When you look at the moon, you're seeing it as it was, just over a second ago. This is a delay we can almost hold in our minds. 1 second is something we experience all the time. You could count it. You could wade through it. 1 second is the duration of a heartbeat, a blink, a breath taken slowly. And in that 1 second, the moon you see has already moved. It has shifted slightly in its orbit. Its surface, if you could perceive such fine detail, has changed in microscopic ways. The moonlight that reaches you now left before you were thinking about looking at the moon at all. It is strange to realize that even the moon, so close, so familiar, so constant in the night sky, is never quite where it appears to be. But let us not stop here. The nearest star beyond the Sun is a system called Alpha Centauri, located approximately 4 light years away. A light year is the distance light travels in 1 year, about 9.5 trillion kilometers. At that distance, the light you see from Alpha Centauri left the star roughly 4 years ago. 4 years. Think about where you were 4 years ago. What you were doing. What concerned you. What you hoped for. That version of you, in that version of your life, existed at roughly the same time the light now reaching your eye was leaving that distant star. When you look at Alpha Centauri, you're seeing into the past. Not metaphorically, literally. You're receiving information from a time that has already ended, a time you have already lived through. And Alpha Centauri is the closest star. Most of the stars visible to the naked eye are much farther. Some are tens of light years away. Some are hundreds. A few, barely visible on the clearest nights, are thousands of light years away. The constellation Orion, perhaps the most recognizable pattern in the northern hemisphere sky, contains stars at vastly different distances. Betelgeuse, the red star at Orion's shoulder, is roughly 700 light years away. The light you see from it left before Gutenberg invented the printing press. Rigel, the blue star at Orion's foot, is even farther, around 800 light years. Its light left before the Mongol Empire had fully formed. When you look at Orion, you are not seeing a single moment. You are seeing many moments, layered on top of each other. Each star appearing to occupy the same sky, despite existing in completely different eras of time. This layering becomes more extreme as we look farther. The Andromeda galaxy is the most distant object visible to the naked eye under the right conditions. It is approximately 2.5 million light years away. 2.5 million years. The light entering your eye from Andromeda left when the genus Homo did not yet exist on Earth. It left when our ancestors were something else entirely. Early hominins, perhaps, walking on 2 legs but lacking anything we would recognize as human culture, language, or thought. The light you see is older than our species. and Andromeda is, by cosmic standards, a near neighbor. It is part of our local group, the small cluster of galaxies bound together by gravity. Beyond the local group, distances stretch further still. The Virgo cluster, a dense gathering of galaxies roughly 50 million light-years away, appears to us as it was when dinosaurs had been extinct for 15 million years, when the mammals were beginning their long, slow diversification into the forms we would eventually recognize. The Coma cluster, 300 million light-years distant, shows us a universe as it existed before complex life had colonized the land. The light from its galaxies was already traveling through space when the first fish were beginning to venture onto shore. At some point, the numbers stop meaning anything. Billions of years, billions of light years. These are scales that the human brain simply cannot process as lived experience. We can write them down, compare them, calculate with them, but we cannot feel them. What we can feel, perhaps, is a quieter realization that the further we look, the less we're seeing anything that is happening now. Every star, every galaxy, every faint smudge of light in the deepest images from our telescopes, all of it is past, all of it is history arriving slowly, having traveled across unimaginable distances, having left its source long before we were looking. The universe we see is not the universe that exists. It is the universe that existed, preserved in light, still in transit. And this leads to a strange question, one that sits beneath all of these observations. What does now mean across the universe? Here, on Earth, we have clocks. We synchronize them carefully. We agree on what time it is, within fractions of a second. We schedule meetings, launch rockets, coordinate across continents. We operate as though there is a shared present, a single moment that we all inhabit together. But what about elsewhere? If you could somehow freeze the universe and ask, what is happening on that distant star right now? The question itself would be slippery, because there is no way to know what is happening there now. The only information that can reach you is old information, carried by light or some other signal, traveling at a finite speed. And by the time you receive that information, now has moved on. This is not simply a limitation of our technology. It is not that we lack fast enough telescopes or sensitive enough detectors. The limit is deeper than that. The speed of light is not a speed in the way we usually think of speed. It is more like a conversion factor, a fundamental relationship between space and time. It defines how these two things relate to each other. And one consequence of this relationship is that any information about anything, cannot travel faster than light. This is sometimes called a speed limit, but that framing can be misleading. It is not as though the universe has posted a sign, warning signals not to go too fast. It is more that the structure of space-time itself does not allow for faster transfer of information. The concepts break down. The geometry refuses to cooperate. And because of this, everything we know about distant places is delayed. Everything we perceive is an echo. Let us pause here and return to something more intimate. You are sitting somewhere, reading this. Or perhaps you are listening to it. Either way, there are objects around you. Walls, furniture, perhaps a window, perhaps a screen. These objects appear to exist in the same moment you do, They feel immediate. They feel present. But as we discussed earlier, they are not quite present. The light reflected from a wall 3 meters away takes about 10 nanoseconds to reach you. From a window 6 meters away, 20 nanoseconds. From the sky beyond the window, a few more milliseconds. Nothing you perceive is truly simultaneous with your perception of it. The difference is too small to matter practically. But it exists, and once you notice it, you begin to see that your sense of now is not a single moment. It is a collection of moments, all slightly different, all arriving at slightly different times, blended together by your brain into the illusion of a unified present. What you experience as the present is a construction, a useful one, a necessary one for navigating the world, but a construction nonetheless. This idea extends in all directions. Sound travels much more slowly than light, roughly 300 meters per second in air, compared to 300,000 kilometers per second for light. When you hear a sound from across a room, you are hearing something that happened a fraction of a second ago. When you hear thunder, you are hearing something that happened seconds ago or longer. The rule of thumb: count the seconds between lightning and thunder to estimate how far away the strike was, is a direct acknowledgement that sound takes time to travel. And this creates small mismatches in experience that we rarely notice. If you watch someone hammer a nail from a distance, you see the hammer strike before you hear the sound. If you stand far enough away from a fireworks display, you see the burst before you hear the boom. These are familiar experiences, so familiar that we do not think of them as strange, but they point to something deeper. What we call a single event, the firework exploding, is never a single experience. It arrives in pieces, at different times, through different channels. Light arrives first, sound arrives later. If you could field pressure wave, that would arrive later still. Every event, no matter how local, is distributed across time in this way. We simply do not notice because the differences are small. Now, let us return to the stars. When we look at the night sky, we are not looking at a single moment. We are looking at a patchwork of different moments, scattered across millions and billions of years. A star 100 light years away is showing us something that happened 100 years ago. A star 1,000 light years away is showing us something that happened a millennium ago. And these are among the closest stars, cosmically speaking. The night sky is a kind of temporal collage. Each point of light represents a different era, a different past, all appearing at the same time from our perspective, but none of them contemporary with us. None of them happening now. And here is a stranger thought. Those stars, in their own present moments, whatever that means, are not the same stars we see. They have changed. Some have moved. Some have grown old. Some, perhaps, have died, collapsed into white dwarfs or exploded into supernovae. Their light from those final moments still traveling toward us, centuries or millennia away from arriving. The star you see in the sky tonight may no longer exist. You would not know. You cannot know. The information has not had time to reach you. This asymmetry runs in both directions. Just as we see distant stars as they were, any observers on those distant stars, if such observers could exist, would see Earth as it was. An observer on a planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, looking at Earth with a powerful enough telescope, would see Earth as it was 4 years ago. They would see news from 4 years past. They would see events that for us have already happened, already faded into memory. An observer 50 million light years away in the Virgo cluster would see Earth as it was 50 million years ago. They would see a planet with no humans, no cities, no technology, just forests and oceans and animals going about their lives. Dinosaurs would be long gone from their view. They would be seeing the early age of mammals, the gradual evolution of new forms. From far enough away, the Earth you know does not exist yet. This is a strange thought to sit with. Somewhere, at some vast distance, light from Earth is still traveling outward, carrying images of ancient history. And if anyone were out there to receive it, they would be seeing a past so old that nothing familiar remains. We speak of the universe as a place, a vast, dark, silent place, filled with galaxies and stars and planets and all the matter and energy that can be observed or inferred. And it is a place, in a sense, but it is also something else. The universe we perceive is a kind of history, a record of events, encoded in light, arriving across time. When astronomers look deep into space, they are not just looking far. They are looking back. A galaxy 10 billion light years away appears as it was 10 billion years ago. They are seeing a young universe, a universe closer to its own beginning, before many of the stars and planets we know today had even formed. The most distant light we can detect is the cosmic microwave background, a faint glow that fills the entire sky, the remnant of a time when the universe was only about 380,000 years old. This is light from before there were stars, before there were galaxies, before there was anything recognizable as structure. Just a hot, dense fog of matter and energy slowly cooling. That light has been traveling for over 13 billion years to reach us, and it is still arriving from every direction, constantly reminding us that the universe has a past, and that past is still visible. Here is another way to think about it. Imagine standing in a vast, dark field at night. Imagine that scattered across this field are billions of small lamps, each at a different distance from you. Some are close, a few steps away. Some are far, kilometers or more. Each lamp is turned on, and the light from each lamp begins traveling toward you at a fixed speed. The closest lamps appear immediately. The farther lamps appear later, and the most distant lamps, if they are far enough, take years to become visible at all. Now imagine that each lamp is not just emitting light, but changing over time. Each lamp has its own history. It brightens, dims, flickers, perhaps eventually burns out. And you, standing in the field, see different lamps at different stages of their lives, depending on how far away they are. The close lamps show you their current state. The distant lamps show you their past. And the most distant lamps show you their early moments, long before they became what they are now. This is roughly what the night sky is like. You are standing in a field of light, where each source is showing you a different moment, and none of them match the moment you are in. The word simultaneous is one we use without thinking. It means at the same time, or two things happen simultaneously if they occur at the same instant. But what does the same instant mean? Here on Earth, this seems straightforward. If two events happen at the same time on synchronized clocks, They are simultaneous. We have agreed on what time it is, and we can compare. But what about events in different places? Different galaxies? Different parts of the universe? This is where things become less certain. There is no master clock for the universe. There is no universal now that applies everywhere at once. Instead, what counts as now depends on where you are and how you are moving. This is one of the consequences of Einstein's theory of relativity, developed in the early 20th century. The theory does not say that time is an illusion or that it does not matter. It says something more subtle, that time is relative, that the flow of time depends on your motion, your location, your frame of reference. And this has profound implications for the concept of simultaneity. Let me describe this carefully, because it can be confusing. Imagine two events. One happens on Earth. One happens on a distant planet, perhaps 100 light years away. Both events happen at what we would consider the same moment. Meaning, if we could somehow freeze time and look at both places at once, we would see both events occurring together. But here is the problem. We cannot freeze time and look at both places at once. If you're standing on Earth, you will see the Earth event immediately, or nearly so, and the distant event 100 years later, when the light finally arrives. From your perspective, the two events are not simultaneous at all. And here is the stranger part. An observer moving relative to you at a high speed would disagree about which events are simultaneous. Not because they are mistaken or because their clocks are broken, but because simultaneity itself is not absolute. Two observers, in motion relative to each other, can legitimately disagree about whether two distant events happened at the same time. And there is no experiment that can prove one of them right and the other wrong. Both perspectives are equally valid. This is difficult to accept because it contradicts our intuition so deeply. We feel as though there is a definite fact about what is happening right now, everywhere in the universe. We feel as though if we could somehow see everything at once, we would find a single frozen moment where every particle and every star is in a specific state. But relativity suggests that this picture is incomplete. There is no single now that applies everywhere. There are only local nows, each defined by a particular observer in a particular place. And these local nows do not line up. Let me offer an analogy, though it is imperfect. Imagine you are standing on a hillside. You can see a distant valley below and a peak above. You say, right now I am here, on this hillside, and that is true. But what is happening now in the valley? What is happening now on the peak? On a hillside, you might think the answer is obvious. You could look down or up and see, but in space-time, the now is not something you can see. You can only see the past, the light that has already traveled to reach you. And the past you see depends on where you are and how you are moving. There is no single horizontal slice through space-time that represents the present for everyone. Instead, each observer has their own slice, their own now, tilted relative to all the others. This does not mean that time is meaningless or that events do not happen. Events happen. Time passes. Change occurs. But the ordering of distant events, which ones are simultaneous, which ones came first, is not fixed. It depends on the observer. For events that are close together, this ambiguity is tiny. For events far apart in space, it becomes significant. And for events at cosmic distances, the notion of simultaneity becomes almost incoherent. Let us return to the feeling of now. When you experience the present moment, what you are actually experiencing is a narrow window of perception, constructed by your brain from signals that have already arrived. Light from the walls, sound from the air, pressure from the floor beneath your feet, all of this information has traveled through space and time to reach you. Your brain assembles these signals into a coherent scene, a stable reality, and presents it to you as now. But this now is local. It is centered on you. It is made of information that has reached you, and only you. Someone standing next to you has a slightly different now, made of slightly different signals. The differences are imperceptible at human scales, but they exist. And as we have seen, the differences grow larger as distances grow. The now of a distant star is not your now. The now of a distant galaxy is even less so. And there is no universal now that encompasses them all. This is not a tragedy. It is not something that should make you feel small or insignificant, though it might. It is simply how the universe appears to work. We exist in a cosmos where nothing ever quite happens together, where every event is separated from every other event by time and space, and those separations never fully collapse. The universe is layered in moments that never fully meet each other. Let us sit with this for a moment. When you look at the night sky, you are not seeing a single present. You are seeing a patchwork of pasts. 1,000 years here, 1,000,000 years there, 13 billion years in the faint background glow. And out there, in that vast dark, things are happening. Stars are forming, galaxies are colliding, planets are cooling. But none of it is happening now, in any meaningful sense. By the time you learn of these events, they will already be history. They will have been history for years, centuries, eons. And this is not because we lack good telescopes. It is because the universe is built this way. Information takes time to travel. Light takes time to arrive. And in the gaps between events and their perception, time moves on. There is a thought experiment that helps illustrate this. Imagine two observers, one on Earth and one on a spaceship traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light, heading toward a distant star. Both observers agree on local events. If something happens right next to them, they see it immediately. But they disagree about what is happening now, at distant locations. For the observer on Earth, now on that distant star, might be a particular moment. Let's say the star is in a certain phase of burning its fuel. For the observer on the moving spaceship, tilted through spacetime by their velocity, now on that distant star might be a different moment, earlier or later, depending on the direction and speed of their motion. Neither observer is wrong. There is no experiment that can determine whose now is the real one. Both are valid. Both are consistent with physics. They simply slice the universe differently. This relativity of simultaneity is not just a curiosity. It is baked into the fundamental equations that describe spacetime. It has been tested and confirmed in countless experiments, from particle accelerators to GPS satellites. GPS satellites, for instance, must account for relativistic effects in order to provide accurate positioning. If they did not, your phone's location would drift by kilometers each day. The fact that GPS works at all is evidence that these strange effects are real. And here is an even stranger consequence. If simultaneity is relative, if different observers can legitimately disagree about which events are happening now at distant locations, then there is a sense in which all moments are equally real. This is sometimes called the block universe or eternalism. The idea is that past, present, and future are not fundamentally different. They are all part of a single four-dimensional structure. And our experience of the present is just a particular viewpoint within that structure. From this perspective, the future exists in the same way the past exists. We simply have not encountered it yet, and the past continues to exist in the same way the future does. We simply cannot access it anymore. This is a philosophical position, not a scientific fact. The equations of physics do not tell us which moments are real. They only describe relationships between events. But the relativity of simultaneity does suggest that the present is not as special as we feel it to be. It is not a knife edge dividing a solid past from an unwritten future. It is more like a local phenomenon, a perspective, a way of organizing experience that differs from observer to observer. Let us drift back to the night sky. When you look at a star, you might wonder, what is happening there? Right now? And the honest answer is, there is no answer. There is no fact about what is happening right now on a star 400 light years away. There is only what we will see 400 years from now when the light arrives, and there is only what has already happened 400 years ago whose light we are seeing tonight. The present, for that star, is undefined, or rather, it is defined differently depending on who is asking and how they are moving. This is a strange kind of isolation. We are not just separated from the distant universe by space. We are separated by time, in a way that cannot be bridged. We cannot call a star and ask what is happening. Even if we could send a signal, it would take 400 years to arrive, and the response would take another 400 years to return. By the time we had our answer, 800 years would have passed. The question would be ancient. The answer would be about a moment long gone. And this isolation applies everywhere, even within our own galaxy. The nearest stars are years away by light. A message sent to Alpha Centauri would take 4 years to arrive. A response would take another 4 years. Any conversation would be punctuated by 8-year silences. We are not just small here on Earth. We are temporally adrift. There is a concept sometimes called the light cone. If you imagine yourself at a single point in space and time, a single event, you can ask, what other events can you influence? And what other events can influence you? The answer is shaped by the speed of light. You can only influence events that are reachable by a signal traveling outward at or below the speed of light. This defines your future light cone, the region of space-time that your actions can affect. And you can only be influenced by events whose signals have had time to reach you, events that occurred in the past, whose light or other signals have traveled to your location. This defines your past light cone. Everything outside these cones is beyond your reach. You cannot affect it. and it cannot affect you, at least not until enough time passes for light to cross the gap. This means that most of the universe at any given moment is outside your light cone. The vast majority of galaxies are so far away that light from events happening there right now will never reach Earth. Not because of any barrier, but because the universe is expanding, and those galaxies are moving away from us faster than light can travel through the space between. These regions are beyond our horizon. They are, in a very real sense, beyond our universe. Not because they do not exist, but because no information from them can ever reach us. We are surrounded by horizons we will never cross. Let us return to the idea with which we began. Nothing in the universe is ever happening now. This is not quite true in the absolute sense. Events do happen. Time does flow, at least locally. Stars burn. Planets spin. Things change. But the idea of a universal now, a single moment that applies everywhere, appears to be a fiction. A useful fiction, perhaps, for navigating life on Earth, but a fiction nonetheless. What we experience as the present is a local phenomenon. It is constructed from signals that have arrived, from information that has reached us. And as we look outward to the moon and the sun and the stars, we are not looking at now. We're looking at then, many different thens, layered on top of each other. The universe is layered in moments that never fully meet, and there is something almost peaceful in this. The cosmos does not rush. It does not hurry towards some unified present. It unfolds slowly, patiently, each region evolving in its own time, connected to others only through the gradual drift of light across the void. Distant galaxies are not waiting for us to observe them. They are not aligned with our clocks. They are simply there, doing whatever they do, and the light from their doing spreads outward at a fixed, finite speed, eventually reaching worlds that may or may not have anyone to notice. This brings us to a question that has no answer, or rather many possible answers. If the present is local, if now is a construction, then what is the nature of time? Philosophers and physicists have debated this for centuries. Some argue that time is fundamental, that change is real, that the past is gone, and the future is unwritten. Others argue that time is an illusion, that all moments exist equally, and that our sense of flow is a feature of consciousness rather than of reality. The honest answer is, we do not know. The equations of physics do not privilege one view over the other. They describe relationships between events, but they do not tell us what exists or when. What we can say is this: the universe does not seem to have a master clock. There is no cosmic metronome ticking out a single rhythm for all of existence. Instead, time appears to flow differently in different places, depending on motion, gravity, and other factors. Clocks run slower in strong gravitational fields. Clocks run slower for objects moving at high speeds. These are not just theoretical predictions. They are measured facts, confirmed again and again by experiments on Earth and in orbit. Time, it turns out, is more flexible than we imagined, more personal, more tied to the specific circumstances of each observer. And this flexibility means that the question, what is happening right now on that distant star, is not just unanswerable. It is, in a sense, incoherent. There is no single right now. that applies to both you and the star. There are only local nows, each valid in its own frame of reference, none of them privileged, none of them universal. Let us sit with this strangeness a bit longer. You are here, in a particular place, at a particular moment. Your senses are gathering information from your immediate surroundings: light, sound, pressure, temperature. Your brain is constructing a model of reality based on this information, and that model feels like the present. But as we have seen, even this local present is made of signals that have traveled through space and time. The lamp across the room is 10 nanoseconds old. The sun is 8 minutes old. The stars are years, centuries, millennia old. Your present is a composite, a collage of different pasts, assembled so seamlessly that you never notice the gaps. And out beyond your senses, the universe continues to unfold in ways you will never witness. On a planet orbiting the distant star, something may be happening right now, or rather, something may be happening in a moment that some observer could consider simultaneous with your now. But you will never know. The light will take too long to reach you. The information will arrive only after time has moved on. By the time you learn of it, your present will have become someone else's past. There is a certain quietness in this. The universe does not shout. It does not announce itself. It simply is, in all its scattered moments, all its disconnected nows, all its patient light traveling through the dark. What feels immediate here is already history elsewhere. And what is happening there, now, will not reach us for ages. Let us think about communication. When we send a message, a radio signal, a beam of light, any kind of information, it travels at the speed of light. This is the fastest anything can travel in the universe as far as we know. If we sent a message to the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, it would take over 4 years to arrive. And if someone there sent a response, it would take another 4 years to reach us. Any conversation would unfold over decades. Each exchange of ideas would span nearly a decade of waiting. And this is the closest star. For stars farther away, the delays grow longer. For galaxies, the delays stretch into millions and billions of years. There is no real-time connection between distant places. There is only the slow exchange of history, messages crossing paths in the dark, each one already old by the time it arrives. This has implications for questions about life in the universe. If there are other intelligent beings out there, on some distant planet, in some distant galaxy, we would never know what they're doing now. We would only know what they were doing when the light left their world. And they would only know what we were doing when the light left ours. Any communication would be a conversation between pasts. Each party would be responding to a version of the other that no longer exists. This is not reason to despair. It is simply the nature of the universe. Distance and time are woven together. They cannot be separated. To be far away in space is to be far away in time. And no technology, no matter how advanced, can change this fundamental relationship. Let us return to the night sky one more time. When you look up, you are looking back. Every photon that enters your eye has been traveling, some for years, some for millennia, some for billions of years. They have crossed the void, survived the journey, and arrived at last at your retina. and each one carries a piece of the past. The sky is not a window onto the present. It is a window onto history, a record of events long gone, preserved in light. And that history is all we will ever have. We cannot see the universe as it is. We can only see the universe as it was. There is a term sometimes used, the observable universe. This refers to the region of space from which light has had time to reach us since the beginning of the universe. It is a sphere, roughly 93 billion light-years in diameter, centered on us. Beyond this sphere, there is more universe. Probably much more. But the light from those regions has not had time to reach us. Perhaps it never will, due to the expansion of space. We are surrounded by a horizon, and beyond that horizon lies a vastness we will never see. The observable universe is, in a sense, our only universe. It is all we can know, all we can measure, all we can interact with. Everything beyond is speculation, reasonable speculation perhaps, based on what we see here, but speculation nonetheless. And within this observable universe, every point of light is a piece of history, a record of something that happened long ago, somewhere far away. Let us consider time in another way. Here on Earth, we experience time as a sequence. First this, then that. Cause, then effect. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. This experience is consistent and reliable. It structures our entire existence. We plan for the future because we believe it has not happened yet. We remember the past because we believe it has. But as we have seen, this experience is local. It is tied to our particular place in the universe, our particular motion, our particular reference frame. For an observer moving at a different speed or in a different gravitational field, time would flow differently. Clocks would tick at different rates. Sequences of events might appear in different orders, at least for events far enough apart. This is not science fiction. It is measured reality. Astronauts on the International Space Station experience time very slightly differently than people on Earth, due to both their speed and the slightly weaker gravity at their altitude. The difference is tiny, fractions of a second over months, but it is real. Atomic clocks at different elevations run at measurably different rates. Clocks on airplanes drift compared to clocks on the ground. These effects are small, but they are not zero. Time, it turns out, is not the uniform backdrop we imagine. It is part of the geometry of spacetime, shaped by matter and motion, flowing differently in different circumstances. And this brings us back to the question of now. If time flows differently in different places, then what does it mean for two events to happen at the same time? The answer, as we have seen, is that it means less than we thought. Simultaneity is relative. It depends on the observer. And for events far apart in space, it becomes almost meaningless. Let us imagine, for a moment, that you could somehow see the universe as it is, all at once, in a single instant, with no light travel delays, no finite speed of signals. What would you see? The question is almost incoherent. The universe is too vast, too complex, too extended in space and time. There is no as it is that could be captured in a single view. But even if you could somehow do it, you would face another problem. Which instant would you see? For you, here on Earth, there is a particular moment you call now. But for an observer on a distant galaxy, moving at high speed relative to you, now means something different. They would slice the universe at a different angle, including events you would call future and excluding events you would call past. There is no universal answer, no master slice, no single as it is. The universe, it seems, does not exist in a single moment. It exists as a structure, a four-dimensional block, in which different observers carve out different presents. This is a strange and perhaps unsatisfying conclusion. We want there to be a fact about what is happening now. We want the universe to be synchronized, aligned, coherent. But it does not appear to be. And yet the universe is not chaos. It is not random. It has structure, patterns, laws that describe how events relate to each other. Cause still precedes effect, at least locally. Light still travels at a fixed speed. The relationships between events are well defined, even if the absolute timing is not. What we lose is not the coherence of physics. What we lose is the intuition that there is a single cosmic present, a moment that encompasses everything. Let us drift outward one more time. Imagine you are not on Earth, but somewhere far away, on a planet orbiting a star in a distant galaxy, millions of light years from here. If you looked at the Milky Way from there, you would see it as it was millions of years ago. You would see the galaxy that existed before humans, before primates, before many of the species that now populate Earth. And if you asked what is happening on Earth right now, the question would have no answer. There would be no right now that applied to both places. There would only be the light traveling slowly, carrying old news. This is the quiet truth of the cosmos. We are not connected to the distant universe in real time. We are connected only through history, through light, through the slow accumulation of ancient signals. The present is local. The universe is scattered, and nothing anywhere is ever happening now, not in the universal synchronized sense that our intuitions demand. Let us take a breath here. These ideas are large. They are difficult to hold. They push against everything our daily experience tells us. And yet, they are not frightening. They are not tragic. They are simply the way things appear to be. The universe is calm, not because nothing happens, but because nothing happens together. There is a peculiar kind of solitude in this. Every point in the universe is, in a sense, alone in its own moment. Each star, each planet, each particle exists in its own local now, connected to distant events only through the slow travel of signals. We are part of this solitude. We are embedded in it. And yet, we rarely notice because our senses are not equipped to perceive light travel delays, and our minds are not built to question the unity of the present. But when you look at the stars, if you let yourself pause and really think about what you're seeing, then perhaps the solitude becomes visible. Each point of light is a past, a distant, unreachable past, frozen in the light that reaches you. And you, in turn, are a past to them. Your light is traveling outward, carrying old images of a world that no longer exists in quite the same way. The universe is filled with these crossing paths of light, signals sent long ago, arriving at places that no longer resemble where they started. Echoes of events that have already concluded, traveling forever through the dark. Every signal is an echo, not a presence. And this is not a failure of the universe. It is not a flaw. It is simply the structure of space-time, the relationship between distance and time, the fact that information takes time to travel. In a different universe with different physics, things might be different. But in this universe, the one we find ourselves in, this is how it works. Let us think for a moment about what this means for memory. Memory, in a sense, is a kind of light travel delay. When you remember something, you're not experiencing the past directly. You're experiencing a reconstruction built from stored information in your brain. The past does not exist anymore. Or if it does, it is inaccessible to you. What you have is a record, a trace, a signal that has traveled through time, in a biological rather than physical sense, to reach your present awareness. In this way, memory mirrors the cosmos. We never experience the past directly, only its echoes. And the future is equally inaccessible. We cannot see it, cannot know it, cannot receive signals from it. We can only move toward it, one moment at a time, discovering it as it becomes the present. The present, then, is a kind of frontier, a narrow boundary where the unknowable future becomes the unreachable past. A thin membrane that moves with us, defining what we can experience, what we can know. And this membrane, this present, is not shared. Your present is yours. Someone else's present is theirs. They overlap here on Earth because we are close together and not moving very fast relative to each other. But they are not identical. And for distant observers, they may not overlap at all. There is a mathematical structure called Minkowski spacetime, named after the physicist Hermann Minkowski, who developed it in the early 20th century. In the structure, space and time are combined into a single four-dimensional continuum. Events are points in this continuum, and the relationships between events are described by a kind of geometry. This geometry is not like the geometry of ordinary space. It has different rules, different distances, different ways of measuring separation. And in this geometry, the concept of now becomes a matter of perspective. Different observers, depending on their motion, will slice the continuum differently, defining different sets of events as simultaneous. This is not just a mathematical curiosity. It is the underlying structure of our universe as far as we can tell. We live in a universe where time and space are woven together, where the order of distant events is not fixed, where the present is a local construction rather than a universal fact. Let us return to the feeling of the present. Right now, wherever you are, you have a sense of what is happening. You can see your surroundings, hear sounds, feel sensations. All of this feels immediate, direct, present, and it is in a sense. It is your present. It is the moment you're experiencing, but that moment is made of signals. Photons that left their sources nanoseconds ago. Sound waves that left their sources milliseconds ago. Nerve impulses that traveled from your skin to your brain in the time it takes to blink. Your present is constructed from these signals, assembled by your brain, presented as a unified experience. It is seamless, it is convincing, but it is not a single instant. It is a collection of instants blended together. And beyond your senses, the world continues in the same way. The sun is always 8 minutes in the past. The stars are always years, centuries, millennia in the past. The distant galaxies are always millions or billions of years in the past. There is no escaping this. There is no way to see the universe as it truly is, in this moment, because there is no universal this moment. There is only light traveling slowly, bringing old news. This is perhaps the deepest kind of isolation. We are not just small. We are not just brief. We are temporally disconnected from most of existence. We live on a tiny planet, in a small solar system, in one galaxy among hundreds of billions. And even within that context, we are cut off from the present of anything beyond our immediate surroundings. The universe is vast, but we can only see its past. We can only interact with its echoes, and yet, there is something almost beautiful in this. The universe does not demand our attention. It does not require our presence. It simply unfolds, each region in its own time, each event connected to others through the patient travel of light. We are part of this unfolding. We exist within it. And for a brief moment, measured in decades, perhaps a century, we get to witness a tiny fragment of the cosmic history, a thin slice of the vast scattered now. Let us sit with this a moment longer. The universe is calm, not empty. There is plenty happening. Stars are forming, galaxies are merging, black holes are swallowing matter. Planets are cooling, heating, changing, but none of it is happening together. None of it is synchronized. Each event occurs in its own time, in its own place, and the news of it spreads outward at a finite speed, reaching other places only after time has moved on. The universe is calm because nothing happens together. There is a kind of peace in this, if you let yourself find it. The pressure to understand everything, to witness everything, to be present for everything. It dissolves when you realize that presence is always local. You do not need to witness the distant stars. Their light is traveling toward you, carrying old stories. Someday, long after you are gone, some of that light will arrive. Others may see it, or no one may. And that is simply how it is. The present is not a cage. It is not a limitation. It is the only thing that could ever be. We are made of signals, embedded in signals, surrounded by signals. We are part of the slow, patient flow of information through spacetime. And in that flow, there is no hurry. There is no urgency. There is only light, traveling, arriving, telling its stories to whoever is there to receive them. Let us end where we began. When you look at something across the room, you're seeing the past. A past so immediate, so close, that it blends seamlessly with your present. When you look at the moon, you're seeing a past measured in seconds. When you look at the sun, a past measured in minutes. When you look at the stars, a past measured in years, decades, centuries, millennia. When you look at distant galaxies, a past measured in millions and billions of years. And when you look at the faint glow of the cosmic microwave background, you're seeing the universe as it was over 13 billion years ago. Before stars, before galaxies, before anything familiar. The further you look, the smaller now becomes. It thins into almost nothing. What remains is light, old light, patient light. Light that has traveled for longer than you can imagine, arriving at last at a small planet where a brief creature looks up and wonders. The universe is filled with light, and all of it is history. There is nothing to conclude here, nothing to summarize, nothing to tie up with a neat bow. The universe is structured in a certain way. Time and space are woven together. Simultaneity is relative. The present is local. Nothing happens together. These are not judgments. They are not tragedies. They are simply observations about the way things appear to be. And so the night sky remains dark, silent, scattered with ancient light, each point a different moment, each star a different era, each galaxy a different age. And you here, now, looking for whatever that means. The universe does not need us to understand it. It does not need us to witness it. It simply is, in all its scattered moments, all its layers of time. And we are part of it, for a little while, in a small corner, in our own local now. Nothing in the universe is ever happening now, and yet something is always happening, somewhere, in some now, that is not ours. This is the quiet truth, not sad, not happy, not meaningful, not meaningless, just quiet, and perhaps that is enough.